we're very fortunate. Stuart is going to lead the discussion, so we're glad.
I'll
you're
try,
here.
I'll try to,
We hope you
I
can-
can't lead this kind of a group.
All right. Well, I did, actually, I did a mural when I was in the service in Texas. Crafted during the Vietnam era. This is before basic training. So I really left high school, and just like, 2 years before I was there in the Army. And I just loved artwork. And I loved the European art. I didn't know much about Mexican art, which I found out a lot about later. Like traveling to Mexico City in a Volkswagen with my partner John Gonzalez. And we just stopped at every pueblo and looked for artwork. And I went to the capital and saw all the big ones, the big names. So I fell in love with doing murals. And then because I didn't go to Vietnam, they sent me to Germany. Wow, it's like more artwork. Did traveling, and I felt blessed coming home and, give back to the community. Through the church, we started an art group. I'm not an art group, but Progress for Youth. But then I heard they were making the first gallery in East LA, and my friend that I went to Mexico with was one of the brothers, and sure enough, we started doing murals right after that. And then I met Wayne, 1975, and said, old friend from elementary school. I left in the 3rd grade because the freeway took our house away. And I had a beard and glasses and long hair when we met. Took him a while to know who I was. But right away, his face was like a child still. I knew that face. So we've been doing public art since 1976, but 75 is when we met and started planning what we were going to do.
I remember I met you guys around that time.
Yeah.
I know that before we had computers and cell phones, I would always make it my responsibility to meet all the Chicano artists, long
You
hairs.
slept at our house before.
Yeah.
But just to set it straight, my biggest regret is that we didn't do anything in Chicano Park.
Not yet.
Todavía hay tiempo.
There's still time.
We can still do it.
Or
Ahora, Isabel. Mucho gusto.
Isabela.
All right, Kipitse, my name is Isabella Reyes. I work here at the Doss Center. I'm an indigenous artist. My focus is a lot of decolonial art and bringing that to children, because I think that's where we need to start first in order to see more growth in our culture, and get out of a lot of cycles that I've seen. But I also do pottery upstairs, so yeah, that's me.
And we're planning a ceramic mural pretty soon, right? Airbrush.
We've done a lot of ceramic murals.
See, we got expertise already here. Mario.
Buenas tardes todos. Buenas noches ya, yo creo. I have had the good fortune of working at Chicano Park, as well as in other areas in San Diego. But I'm originally from LA, from Boyle Heights, and I left LA about 40 years ago and came to San Diego. And didn't start making murals until quite some time after I was in San Diego. Not until they started the restoration of murals at Chicano Park in 2012. It was a huge amount of funding and activity, and there were several murals being restored at the same time. And it was just wonderful. The synergy, having Jose Montoya there painting, and Juanishi Orozco from the Royal Chicano Air Force, and of course this guy. Victor invited me to help with the Hasta la Bahia mural, which is a very, very interesting project because it was a mural that was 75% unfinished and had sat there for 20 some years or longer. And the reason it sat there unfinished was when Victor started the painting and they had the huge scaffold erected around the entire mural, and this mural is two pillars, and maybe we can,
I'm gonna show
yeah,
one of
we can
those.
show
It's
it.
the biggest one there.
There's a bigger one now. That one there. No, that's Anastasia. This is another one that's that one.
That one.
That's the one. This is all the way to the bay,
It's out
or
of focus.
the Hasta la Bahia mural. So if you can imagine, 3/4 of that blank or faded for 30 years, and the reason was, I started to tell you, is the scaffold was erected, and shortly thereafter, our good friend here went to work in the morning, and the scaffold was gone. Somebody had dismantled the scaffold at night and drove away with it. It had to be an army of people doing it, but that's what happened. And so, unfortunately, it was left unfinished until 2012 when we received funding for the restoration of it was 18 murals that were restored.
Chain down the scaffolding after that.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a wonderful experience because not only was it not finished, but that gave us artistic license with the originator of the mural present to kind of enhance it, recreate it. So it wasn't purely a restoration, it was actually a completion of a mural that never got completed. And it was an amazing experience because I did not have much experience painting murals, especially something of that scale. But Victor had trusted me and pretty much gave me free rein on the pillar on the right side, the blue pillar or the men's pillar.
Is it possible to focus it at all? Because it seems like it's out of focus. No?
No, it might be the photo. And then Victor focused on the left side, which eventually became the fire pillar or the woman's pillar. The interesting thing about this mural is there was a lot of kind of unconscious things that developed in the process. As we developed it, we had a little trailer parked there where we would kind of digest the work of the day, plan the next day, assess our materials, and have over a shot of tequila in the afternoon. Right? and we looked at it and looked at how it was developing, and we realized that a lot of our own evolution as men coming into the 2000s, and our consciousness about our relationship with women and genders and so forth, it kind of played out in the painting very naturally. So the painting that we call the water pillar ended up being comprised of male figures, right? Water typically, and maybe stereotypically, being something that's associated to women and the calming waters and so on and so forth. But in this case, the men emerged in that medium. Right? The opposite happened on the other side, simultaneously. You have the fire and the heat, and the figures are all women. Right? And so when we discussed it later, we said, the women are the fire. The women are the heart of the home, of the community. Even the Chicano Park struggle for the occupation of that land was largely led by women, by elders, by younger women, and then the men pretty much filled in the gaps. But this played out very naturally, very almost spiritually in a way. Sure. And so by the time that we completed this project, we were very satisfied with that. And in some ways it transformed that part of the park. The question is about transforming communities. I think the imagery subtly, maybe subconsciously, transforms consciousness, transforms, the young men that walk by through there get something out of that. The young women that walk through there get something out of that. And so I think the way that art causes transformation in people's thinking, this happens on a daily basis there because there is a lot of traffic through there. So anyway, that was my introduction to muralism, and I've loved it ever since. I've done a couple more in the park. with Victor and without Victor, and then have also branched out into the surrounding communities of San Diego, and have done a few. One of them that I want to highlight, if you can kind of scroll through there, since we're talking about transforming communities.
Well, we're really just introducing ourselves right now.
Oh, we're not going to go through that. Okay.
Because we
that's
don't have much time, and I think
fine.
we want
let's
to
roll.
make sure that we show images that you all brought, right, to talk a little bit more about. Right?
Okay, why don't you go ahead, sir?
Cindy, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's
sir.
okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Rocha. I'm from Fallbrook, California, and I am one of Victor's students as well as Mario's. I have had the honor to paint 2 murals in Chicano Park and help with restoration projects. I am proud to say I was one of the only women to airbrush on the Brown Image mural, and kind of led an effort to get more women involved in airbrushing through workshops. And that's pretty much what I do.
Is that airbrush as opposed to aerosol?
Yes.
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 Great.
The durability of aerosol is not adequate enough for true Chicano future muralists. Wayne, brother, glad to see you here.
I'm sort of a local boy here, went to school at Cal Poly, but not for art. I wanted to get a real job. I grew up with a family that was full of artists. My grandfather did a mural for Amy Semple McPherson's Angelus Temple back in the 30s. And that spilled down through the DNA through my uncles. And but it never was a vocational goal. Anyway, when I got through with school, I moved to the Midwest, and I went to grad school in Cincinnati, Ohio, but I was painting there also. I had one of the bedrooms of the house is my studio. And then it came time to return to LA, and I got a job at Hughes Aircraft. And my brother-in-law said, "Hey, you're a painter. Have you ever been to Mexicano?" Mexicano, no. He said, "I'll take you over there." So he took me to there, and here's a bunch of guys, and they were printing. So I was doing silkscreen printing. That was really great. And then one day I called up Ray Atilano. I said, "Hey, Ray, what's happening?" He says, "Hey, go down to the projects tomorrow. We're going to be painting a mural." And I thought I was hearing things. A mural? You talking about like a big painting, like on the wall, like God and everybody has to see it? Yeah, that's what they do. I thought, let me check that out. So we went to Ramona Gardens, and about 9 of us attacked the wall at Nico's grocery store. And, "Hey, do you know how to paint a lowrider?" Yeah, oh, okay, we paint a lowrider there. Ray, one of the guys started leading. You paint cactus? Yeah, paint some cactus right there. And so this mural got put up. I don't know if it was the world's most artistic mural, but it changed my life, for sure. And I soon had my own wall in Ramona Gardens, and I painted a piece there. And I was starting to meet other artists like Magoo and Carlos Almaraz. And so at this one show that's done in the beach, this tall, skinny kid comes up with me and says, "Hey, I think I know you." I said, "Oh yeah, I don't recognize you." He says, "Yeah, we were in school together." I said, "Oh, you went to Garfield?" "No, I went to Humphreys Avenue School." And I went, "Man, that's way back." And then this getting together and finally, yeah, well, we used to do that. We did a dinosaur mural in third
For
grade.
open house.
For open house. Anyway, that tall kid was David Boteo. And before long, we were talking about painting together, and we got a wall, and before we were done, we knew we weren't done with each other. That was the birth of East Little Streetscapers.
We have the slides to show that.
We'll get into those right away. I was thinking of how to get this started and start get the momentum, and I know time sometimes goes, an hour and a half is not that very long. I'm very long-winded. So maybe can we jump onto my slides? I want to do mine really quick, get it out of the way, and that way you guys can kind of follow your time element.
Sure.
I picked 3 murals. I've done probably kind of in the range of 200 murals already in my lifetime. And I've been painting murals as a Chicano, not just in San Diego, but LA. We painted over here at Estrella Courts, for instance, and in other places in LA. But I've also painted in China, in Japan, in Belfast, Ireland, in Barcelona, Spain, Cuba, which I'm planning to go next month. It's painted about 7 murals in Havana. Canada, I call it, it's like part of the United States. Vancouver is like, and one in my home in Tijuana, I've had like portable murals going around. But things that made some kind of community impact, and kind of going through Marge's outline that she put together. This one is this is the facade of the Centro Cultural de la Raza, that I was one of the kind of initiators of this cultural center that we still have in Balboa Park. And one of the younger artists, Ernesto Paul, painted a skeleton right there where that I painted this Geronimo exactly over. But across the street, this is during Vietnam and all that, there was the Naval Hospital was across the street. It had all of these viejitas and mothers of the servicemen that were injured in that hospital looking at a skeleton shooting up with a U.S. flag in the syringe, and they hated it. They hated that mural, and one of the directors, Frank Sias, got pressured so much that they made him whitewash it. And I happened to be in Europe at the time when that got whitewashed, and I came back. I said, "What the hell happened? Why is it all white?" And he said, can you paint something over it? And I was pretty upset that it was painted out and that Frank would have had it painted out. So I wanted to do a strong image. And I'm part Yaqui and Zapoteca also from my mom's side. So I call myself capirotada, which means bread pudding, which is. And so there's not that much difference between Apaches and Yaquis. We're still, we don't let stuff slide. We don't like the cavalry. We don't like the federales. Geronimo fought against both sides, and I kind of when I read about him, I kind of felt that he was a Chicano because he was right at the border. He actually spoke English, Spanish, and Chiricahua. And I said, "Oh, this is this guy," and I liked the way he was sitting there, and I visualized it right where the skeleton head was at. So I put him right where the whitewashing was at. The other figures are the multidisciplinary activity that we were doing inside. But the reason that I'm showing this is that throughout the years, it has gotten famous, and a lot of people wonder, why did a Chicano paint Apache? And, you know, I think one of our duties as Chicanos was to bring the awareness of our indigenous heritage. So that's one of the reasons. And I can go on talking about that issue for many moons. Let's jump to another image, if we can, please. This is a sketch which Cindy was very instrumental in working on this and class. This is the Anastasio Hernandez Rojas mural that is dedicated to a man that was murdered by immigration officers at the border about 11 or 12 years ago. And this is the widow, Maria Puga, and the Cuates. He had 5 kids. Two were, ¿cómo se dice? Gemelos and twins. Twins in English. And that's Anastasio in the frame in the middle. But I wanted to work as a class, and this is one of the things about Chicano art that a lot of people may not know, is that we are very community oriented and our dynamics is very democratic. We love working with the community and have input by everybody interested, you know, kids, I know parents and other artists and the community at large would have input. Every time that we painted something at Chicano Park, it was in that dynamic. This one, in this case, which happened just 2 years ago, right, Cindy?
Yeah, 2.
When you get my age, years go by a little bit different. So I asked the class to come up with images and see what we wanted to put into this mural. So, you know, the monarch butterfly, for instance, now is a symbol of immigration. Because why? Because it's born in Mexico and it flies through all these borders all the way to Canada. It actually is like 3 generations of that same butterfly end up in Canada. I think the Tratado de Libre Comercio, how do you say that in English? The free trade agreement was designed. I would have put the monarch in there. The eagle, you know, one of the things is when you're trying to paint something that's about somebody that's dead or killed, you get, you know, it's something that you're dealing with your spiritual energies. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or more sensitive to that, or I'm feeling that death is soon to arrive. I felt closer to that. There's other things like this family crossing over the border, you know, the plastic handcuff. That father and child that's drowned in that water there is the one. And during that same year that we were working on this, that happened in the river in El Paso. And I thought it was a shocking image, but I think for me to instigate or to tell the community something in a strong way to wake up some consciousness, I thought it was an ideal image. But funny enough, this Rocha over here, she said, did you tell me that you had a nightmare or something? Because we proposed it with the class, I wanted the input of the whole class. And you want to say something?
Yeah. So when I learned about the incident, I learned about it on social media, and I was really hesitant to view the picture at first because it was such a heavy image. And I remember going to Victor and asking him, like, hey, like, this happened. I haven't seen the picture. I think it would be good to include it. Like, what are your thoughts? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And I think I took about 3 days wrestling with the image, and I finally looked at it. And to me, it was like one of the most horrific photos that I've ever seen. And I couldn't even imagine, like, what the father was going through in his head to outweigh such a large risk, you know, for him to cross a river with his 2-year-old and then, you know, they end up drowning. But I think the image spoke to me because there were so many people that were like turning away from it at the time. And
yeah, most of there was a big split in the class.
Yeah.
I think we had about 20 students, and 7 or 8 of them did not want us to put that image up. So we talked about it, and this is that, to me, that was a good process to discuss it and to dialogue about it. Eventually, we voted for that, as long as we showed their spirits. You see that energy flowing above. Those are the spirits of the souls of those.
Is that a collaboration, Victor?
This is what we did within the class.
Is that on canvas?
That's on a canvas. It's like 5 foot by 7 foot. It's a large canvas. Let's move on to the next image. I don't want to take too much time from everybody else because I know time is going by. Can you move a little bit further? That one. That one is the finished Anastasio Hernandez Roja mural. And I think it was very successful, and we could go and speak about it for hours. But for instance, we painted it all in pearlescent paints. We have a lot of stuff that's airbrushed, and we have the Day of the Dead included into some of the details. This whole pre-Columbian way of looking at death is something that, for Chicanos, we don't just paint All Saints Day, or we don't just do altars in a European way. Ever since we started doing Day of the Dead altars, we've always included the indigenous part of our heritage, which I learned some things that I hadn't known, like the Choloscuincle being the dog, being a guide to the afterlife, and other things that we learned about the energy of transcendence. Transcendence means so much more to me because I found out the Aztecs actually had a god of transcendence. They knew much more than most of us about death. So I could, like I said, I could go on and on. Let's see if the portrait is in your next slide. Yeah. So you can see that this is in the center of the top. And so I wanted to show Anastasio, but not alive or dead. Like he was like going from one dimension to the other. So we decided as a group, because I don't like to just do Victor Ochoa murals. I like everybody to have some input and feel that they're part of it. So that's an eclipse. That black circle is an eclipse with these orbs that are like the spirits that are going above to this other dimension. And so it's kind of diffracted between life and death. I'm not sure if we achieved it, but this is what we were trying for. So, maybe we could have questions about that later, but let's move on. Let me see if the next image is up, please. No, the other way, I think.
That was all I had.
No, you already passed the one that I want to get to. Yeah, that one, this one's a good one. Because this one is kind of funny in a certain way. I did a flyer, in 1970s, the city of San Diego decided to rezone Logan Heights into a dirty industry zone, which meant that they started an invasion of junkyards, dirty industry, chemical 55-gallon drums with poisonous insecticides in them. That were selling to Mexicans on their way down to Tijuana for storage tanks. And so we had a big effort in the community during those years. And I remember Laura Rodriguez, one of our senior leaders in the community, we're trying to organize a community to battle and to have the community rezoned to just, regular community. And I did a flyer. I used to do flyers before computers and everything. I used to do everything with, rapidographs, sometimes rub-on lettering and that. So I did this flyer, Barrio sí, Yonques no. Um, I don't know if you know what Yonkers are, and I don't have time to ask you those questions, but Yonkers is how we say junkyards at the border. You know, we're pochos, whatever you want to call us. At the border, we use both languages together. I misspelled barrio on purpose because in those years, we even thought that Spanish was a European language, and in a revolutionary way, we changed the spelling. I know the first thing I changed was Gonzafos, which means kind of like respect. We changed it from a CS to a KZ, for instance. We all knew that why we changed those letters, but now the reason I'm showing this one is that throughout the years, with all this white supremacy going on in San Diego, we've had several altercations with them in the past 2-3 years. It always comes out in the newspaper. Oh, Chicano Park that is against white people and the in very weird angles. The reason that I liked the flyer was it was kind of like that. The first group that didn't like the flyer was the heroin addicts in the barrio, the junkies. So they thought that I was talking about junkies. And I said in a certain way, I don't want you guys around here either. And then some of the white people, we had a lot of white people supporting us and working with us in the Federation at the time. They says, hey, brother, some of us want to help you guys out, and we're for all your issues and that, and so that was the other one.
And they thought you were saying Yankees.
Yeah.
And then they thought there was that group that thought I was saying Yankees. So did I cover? There was like 3 of them. There's junkies, Yankees,
And Yonkers.
yeah. Anyway, it every 2-3 years you would see an editorial commentary in the paper. So it was like the mural was still working after years. This caused in 1977 we got the murals out of the barrio. So to me, what does our mural do? It can do that. It can be part of that effort to do community change. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Let's go with. You want to start your
Both of
images?
us?
If you want to do it two together,
It's,
twinsies.
streetscaper work.
All right, go for it, you guys.
Wayne wanted to include this one.
All right, this is the metamorphosis of a star.
It's part of 4 walls of a DMV, and this is the detail.
Yes, this you're looking at about 15 feet wide and 10 feet tall. The mural is 10 feet tall and 400 feet around the DMV in Culver City. And Culver City is where Hughes Aircraft was, where I worked. It was in aerospace. And so we look at our who's going to see this mural the most, and we knew a lot of engineering people would see that. So we do astronomy and other technical things. We have Albert Einstein riding a bicycle along a band that curves all the way around the.
And that was his 100th anniversary.
That's right, 100th anniversary, 1979. This metamorphosis of a star is the life of a star. This will happen to our sun. It becomes a red giant, and then it blows up into a nova, a new star, and then it dissipates into a nebula. And here we see astronomers from different cultures and time, and we have a Aztec sculptor, astronomer pointing at the red giant, and a Chinese astronomer pointing at the nova, and a Caribbean astronomer pointing at the nebula.
And that's the life of one star over time, as it was dying.
This happens over millions of years, and just shows how different cultures have arisen and fallen and changed. And that's enough of that one. Unless David's
It's a
got
beautiful
something.
way to look at
Right.
time.
No appreciation of it.
So Wayne is the engineer, and he plowed that, what do you call it? The time, that spiral thing.
Mhm.
Wayne didn't tell you, but he's got 3 degrees. He's got mechanical engineering, mathematics, and fine arts.
Wow.
So he got his fine arts way after we did this one.
We invented steam. Science, technology, engineering.
So
art.
another thing to notice is the DMV in Culver City was a black building. And we went there, and the bid, it was a California, to anybody who wanted it, they had to submit ideas for many, many places at one time, DMVs throughout the state. And that, they wanted something inside the building, but you go in the building, it's paneling, it's glass, there's doors. You've been in a DMV and it's like, there's no walls.
It's boring in there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So evidently they wanted something standing somewhere, and at that time we didn't do any three-dimensional work. So we go outside, I'm looking at the building, he said, hey, look at the big giant black velvet painting. It was a black, that was space, and so all our images are against the black background. And the bad thing is, there's a wood building, and they had these windows that people on the inside could see out, but it had only wood dividers. There's one right there, and we had to paint around each one of those.
Oh, my God.
2x3s, and it was in redwood. And after it was 40-some years that it's been there, it needs refurbishing. Maybe the other one from the front of the building. So again, you see the black background, and we have a Mexican astronaut, which is the biggest figure on that front wall. And
Was that a real Mexican astronaut? Because I know one of my nieces is a Mexican astronaut, Elena Ochoa.
well, we just put the flag on his shoulder. And
Oh,
that-
but we do have one, we do
Yeah,
have a Mexican
exactly.
astronaut now.
And on the mural, and down the block here, we have the first black astronaut that went to, and he's a local person. And so what you see are, actually, the other flags that you see is one Japanese and one African. And so motor vehicles on the moon, it's what we had a theme for the mural. And so what you, we had, my wife had stockings, it came in those little silver eggs. So we got that to give us that reflection on his face plate. And what you're seeing and you're looking at it, if you're up close and you're going like this, looking at it, that's a pachuco standing there. And it's a reflection of the street right behind you.
Yeah.
And the palm trees that were right there also. So we try to include optical illusions, like Einstein we put in there because it was documented his, to sort of date the time period. We like to include those kind of things in our mural designs.
You didn't mention the iPad that we
Oh yeah,
invented.
he's holding, the other hand's holding this iPad we put in there before iPads were there.
Wow.
And so this is in the future astronaut, because you know, when they went up to the moon, it's like, man, it was ancient technology. And there, behind them is a dedication, the flag, the lunar landing, and we sort of dedicated where man first set foot on the moon. And then way on the other side of that wall, that's the Washington Wall, Washington Boulevard, and Purdue, and 405's over here. If you get off on the Culver City exit, Washington Boulevard, you could find this mural. And then on the other side of this same wall is like a futuristic building with, they're building a monorail. So we're up there building a monorail on the moon.
I would say that I was the engineer on that project, but David was the design creator because of his comic book background. He
I'm a sci-fi
designed
guy.
some of the vehicles that we painted on the mural.
Mm.
I might have told him I should put a brace here or put a brace there, but David was the one that came up with his futuristic vehicles, all in a lunar DMV. And I forgot you forgot to mention that that's Healy's Comet.
Healy's Comet.
Healy's
And that
Comet.
also dates the mural, doesn't it? There was
We
some,
visited
that we were visited real close by a comet at the time.
I have a quick question. What shape are these in now, in terms
What
of
shape?
wear and tear?
Well, that's wood,
Uh-huh.
and in front of it used to be more plants and sprinklers.
Mm.
So all the bottom used to get hit. No, it needs some light cleaning because you don't want to take so much off. And then we would sort of, with an air compressor, do some exterior varnish
Mhm.
to seal it.
Yeah.
And then once that's dry, it could be retouched.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't want to retouch it in the condition it's in.
Right.
It did, entrances, all the hands that touch the corners, it's all worn.
Are you proposing that yet to DMV, or
I would like to,
you haven't done it yet?
because I'm sure we got money from California
Arts Council.
Arts Council, you know, whoever funded these projects. But they do have overhangs, so they are protected from
Right,
somewhat,
to some degree, yeah.
but not rain that's coming this way.
Let me just remind you that Acryloid B72 is now specially made to restore the color intensity of the pigments, and then to bind it back to the foundation of
I
that.
would like to.
And then you can still paint over and if you wanna do more, color. you
Willie
can-
Heron likes that.
Spark was
Spark.
producing it, but now with all the problems with transportation, now it's more, a little bit more difficult. But I can, put you in touch with the people that
We'll
are
get
still
some
distributing.
funding when that will,
Let's do it,
we're
man.
gonna
Yeah,
hit you up,
mural
for
shoot.
sure. Well, we have some other slides. This one has, 4 walls, so it's like, I didn't wanna just show one. So this is our very first mural. We met on 75, so by the end of 75, we had a design going, so that in 76, we started painting. And so you'll see, this design is Wayne Healy's pencil design, because when we said, okay, we're gonna hit up Judy Baca and Judith Hernandez worked for us there, got us the paperwork going. And so they got us like scaffold and paint, that was it. And then we got the bank to put in $400. We had our own jobs, we did it on Saturdays only, one day a week.
Hmm.
And he bought an old station wagon and put the scaffold right on top and tied it right to it. So Wade, you could talk about your design, because he flipped a coin and won. So I said, okay, I'll help you, you design it.
Well, we were trying to find a wall and cruising around town, and I live in Lincoln Heights, and this is on the corner of Daly and North Broadway. And I'm passing by there and I'm looking at that wall on the left, and it's the same size as the wall that I painted in Ramona Gardens. I said, you know what, I'm gonna walk in there and see if I can sell the mural to this bank. So I walked in there and I said, hi, I'm Healy, and I'm looking at your wall there. It's a great mural wall. And the guy looks at me and says, what about the other walls? And I went, other walls? Yeah, come here, look at this. How about that wall, and that wall, and that wall, and that wall? I go, yeah, man. Yeah, we can do all of that. And I thought, man, this is easy. That was the easiest mural to get. And of course, like David says, they put all of $400 in there for materials. But with that grand presence there, we came up with a design that made time periods of.
Tell them about 1976.
This was in 1976, and this was the bicentennial year. And so all this stuff we were seeing about bicentennial had to do with George Washington and the Battle of Concord and all this East Coast stuff. And I said, well, you know, we were out here on the West Coast doing some patriotic things, settling in LA. So this is our bicentennial piece. And from
But right at the right panel, way at the right.
from right to left, we started the chronology. So that's La Indígena on the right. Next to it's La Española, and then El Mestizo, and then La Revolución, and then finally La Familia. And so we kind of made a visual history, narrative history of our people. And
She's gonna go to Familia right now.
people would walk by and make comments. I remember one lady, she had tears in her eyes. She says, "You're painting our history. You're painting our story." And that's when we began to realize that this was not our mural. This belonged to the people in the neighborhood, and it's plain enough to read.
Wayne, tell them first about your design motif, your composition.
Okay, I'm a mathematician, and I find a lot of art, a lot of beauty in mathematics, especially analytic geometry, conic sections. If you take a cone and slice it in certain angles, you get a parabola or a ellipse or hyperbola. And what you're looking at this Familia panel, there's the starburst, there's really 3 hyperbole shape. And so we create a design based on mathematical figures and match the geometry or the architectural dimensions.
Is
So-
it still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
restored?
1976, so it's like 40.
Well, you know, this one used to get some powerful graffiti, but they had it cleaned and then they put cameras up on the bill, and that helped. But we were thinking about advocacy, and now we think about it, each one of those segments are, we talk about that. Okay, you could say we put muralists painting a mural because that's what we do, and that's what we want people to recognize that we're beautifying, we're teaching, we're doing all kinds of things. And then over here, music, people getting together in their kitchen, young guys, wanting to, maybe form a group, maybe just socializing and sharing their love for music. Same when you go out, that's Elysian Park, and the homeboys are playing football. And sports is really popular, and so we love sports ourselves, and so we have them enjoying the rough sport, but they're not fighting over it, they're not fighting over territory. And then up above, we have Farm Workers Union representative talking to getting more people to join the union. this is 1976, we had a lot of board cuts. Coors beer, board cut grapes, lettuce, all that stuff happening. And then, right here, we have Mayor Bradley, a black mayor, first one of LA. He's wearing a sombrero, and he's going through the community, and we're talking about, you know, respect for the cultures, and, you know, we got a mayor, we voted for him. We're going to start to share the politics of the city. And then, of course, just grandpa enjoying her garden, teaching the child to appreciate the flowers, the gardens. And so, this is how old we were.
Bell bottoms.
You want to say anything else about it?
That was the thing, that cut it.
Yeah. Okay, next.
I love the dignity and strength in their faces, the central figures.
Uh-huh.
Really nice.
Oh, wait, we do have one more. So, we got into three-dimensional stuff. At my house, I had a wall falling, and I had a brother-in-law who was there to help me do stuff, and we put up, you know what they do on the old cathedrals, that buttress? So we put some up, and I carved something out of redwood. I did a pyramid in the sun, I did the family with a flower, and then a house with gears. So I said, I know how to do concrete relief. So we got together, and those are hollow columns. They're pointing in the four directions. It's concrete, and then on the inside is a tile, 1 foot tiles, 14 foot tall. On the floor is a map of the journey from Mexico, from Tucson from Baja, and how they got together. The way they occupied the land, the Spaniards, they took their explorers, they mapped the trails, they brought the missionaries, guys, to convert the indigenous people and get labor, and then they brought the pobladores. And so that was a tribute to the pobladores when we won that competition. And we came up with three-dimensional way, like, your quarter, the faces. And
Relief.
so these are like local people. We took profiles of them. And we had a sculptor, Alejandro de la Loza, and he helped us. We got a table. We made these real big tables to hold weight, and on rollers, and a frame, and he did his clay models after our designs, and then he poured 2-part silicone rubber in it, and had a moat, so it just leveled off. After that, peeled off that thing, and then you threw away the original mold, the original art, and then we designed other forms, and you put that mold in there, you put steel, and you pour concrete, and we developed a way to do adobe colored concrete, and then afterwards do just regular gray concrete. And we did all the engineering, and we shipped those things up on a flatbed all at one time.
40-foot flatbed came into the yard, and they loaded with a forklift. We loaded it on the truck, and that truck drove away, and we were gonna meet it up in San Jose. And I just went, oh my God. It's gonna run off the road. It's gonna bust into a million pieces. Oh, it's never gonna happen. And we got there and the truck wasn't there. I was like, oh no. Well, the intersection here, they were in the wrong intersection. And they came back, and then when that thing pulled up, I went, oh. And then I was watching them as they were unloading with a crane, and the first thing he did was pick it up, and the panel shifted, and here it comes swinging, and it's like gonna crash into these. And I'm like, oh my God! And the crane operator, he pulled a quick move and picked it up, and that thing swayed right there and didn't break anything. So there's a lot of my sweat and tears just watching it getting erected.
And so, it's really not a mural, but we built our own walls, and then we put the tile art on it. So the tile was put on afterwards, don't we? Afterwards.
Yeah, we set it on site.
And we even did it for night lighting. So the star at the bottom, that's all ours, and the brick is put in afterwards. And there's lights on the inside, and then the granite caps have words around it in English and Spanish.
Right.
Is that still there in San Jose?
Oh, yeah.
Still
What
there.
is the location? Is it a civic
Okay,
location?
that's San Jose, which is the first pueblo in California. That's why they wanted this, Pobladores. So that's on the corner of First and Market. And we they chose that because from the port of Monterey, the old road comes right through that intersection.
Well, I want to thank East Los Streetscapers for all their countless years of work. I remember several work sites that you had, a warehouse in LA, and then one in Rosemead. Didn't you have one out there? The big.
One in Rosemead.
And I'm just wondering, so many generations you influence of young upcoming people, and I don't think that we have time to cover all those things. But I want to, on behalf of Pomona, San Diego, and all these other barrios, including San Jose, thank you guys for all of the work that you guys put in. And it's already 6:05. I want to make sure that we cover at least, the other three participants at least in a short time. So let's do Isabel next, please.
Okay. Okay, well, I don't know if on the drive over here you got a chance to see some of the small murals. I like to work small, not as big, but the small murals over, not South Thomas, but they're on the way to the DAS Center. This local gallery, the Alley Gallery, had an opportunity for people to get out there and paint. So I thought, okay, why not? So that was one of my first ones. Do you have the one where it's like the full and not my head?
I
just wanted to show off my
Oh, I thought
braids.
that was painted.
Just my braids, no, me.
I thought the graphic, wow, that was a good job on the braids.
But yeah, that was one of the ones that I painted, and my main thing is for young girls and young brown girls to see their facial expressions and to get away from a lot of the Eurocentric beauty standard. And I mean, look, see some chunky girls out there. That's okay. That's totally okay. And the nose is mine. The cheeks are mine. So it's really important, and I'm really hoping to see a lot more of that. So we feel good about getting out in the sunlight and just living our lives in a good way. But yeah, that was one of my art pieces, and it's happy. So
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. There's more. Okay, so this one, it's kind of out of the way. It's off of Holt. There needs to be a lot more art on Holt Street here in
So you're a
Pomona.
local artist?
Yeah. I'm probably really close by, like 4 minutes away. But yeah, this one is off of Holt Avenue. We need more art over there. Hopefully we can get more. I painted a depiction of the North. It's not all of it, but that was one of the only pictures that I had. My dad always helps me with the Spanish translation because I don't speak Spanish. Him and I are mostly learning our indigenous language. So that's one of the only instances where Spanish is going to show up in my artwork. And I did that for a reason, you know, because most of our people speak Spanish, unfortunately. And if I can remember, I know that it says that life is going to get hard, but you're going to keep moving. You have to keep moving. And wherever you go, I'll move with you. And that's a known way of saying that, you know, your ancestors are always with you. You know, every step you take, every 1,000 steps, you know, your ancestors take with you everywhere you go. And I've had that in the back of my mind since I was young. I go, shoot, I'm alone, but I'm not. So that was one of my
Did you do
pictures.
the lettering, moving on purpose?
Yes, yeah. And then that, it's pretty big. The lettering's pretty big. And then at the very, very underneath, that it's just a smaller way of saying it in our indigenous language. But,
What do you consider your indigenous language?
oh, we're Kickapoo from northern Mexico. So what happened is that the Kickapoo originated in Oklahoma, and to escape colonization, they moved down into Texas and into Mexico. Some have stayed, but we're from the ones that moved into northern Mexico. Oh, that's just pictures. But yeah, that's me. Okay. Who's next?
Thank you very much, Isabel. It's really good to see the younger generation approaching some of the issues, because sometimes I criticize a lot of upcoming artists kind of not really focusing on any message to teach our community things. It's mostly decorative or otherwise. So let's continue with you, Mario.
Okay, well, we'll try to get through them really quickly. The question about how our public art transforms communities is the one that stuck with me the most. And if you can go back to the previous one. One of the wonderful things about working public art, particularly in a place like Chicano Park, is that you're called upon frequently as an artist to give tours of the murals. And so with that, you become intimately familiar with the message of each mural, the history of each artist, and you get to work with people of all ages, you know, people from all over the country, all over the world actually, who contact the steering committee to organize a tour. In this case, it's a tour of elementary school kids, and you know, they're attentive to varying degrees depending on the group, depending on how many parents come with the group. But for the most part, they get a lot out of it and are very appreciative. And you run into them later on the street, and hey, I remember you. Thanks for that sort of thing. Happens all the time. So next one. The Anastasio Hernandez Rojas mural, of course, was a memorial to Anastasio and his family for the terrible loss of their father and husband. But when we started painting it, this was at the beginning of Trump's zero tolerance policy, where you started to have deaths of children happening every week, and it was highly publicized. And so in this mural, we incorporated some of those images even after we designed the mural. You know, there was space, and we said, oh shit, this happened, we need to include it. And so one of the things I love about working with Victor is it's very organic and very in the now. And oftentimes when something's what happens now, you know, we can incorporate it in there, we do that. And it makes the mural that much more personal and temporal, right? So this is Jacqueline Maquin Cal. She was the first child from Guatemala who died in custody. I painted her in an ice cube that's melting to kind of project the thought of what if ice as an agency just melted away someday? You know, this can happen, right? And so each of those paintings that have the children in them have deeper meanings as well. Go to the next one. This was another one that I thought really transformed the community. This is done on a storefront in the town of Lemon Grove. And the owner of the business, he is a immigration activist who rescues people that are released from the detention centers, who are just dropped in the streets, and they go and pick them up and help them adjust, and actually have funding to fly them anywhere in the country to join their families. Anyways, Mark asked me if I can do something on the front of the mural, and he wanted something that had something to do with lemons, since it's Lemon Grove. And so we started off with painting these lemon orchards on the front, but then I thought, why don't we take advantage of the time and space and project to honor the workers of that community, the people who built that town, right? And so we painted the lemon workers and the orange workers. And then, he approached me as I was completing that part. He said, there was this viejita that lived right down the street, because he grew up in that neighborhood, who back then, she used to come out and bless the kids as they were walking by with sage, and she would do different ceremonies in front of her house. And he said, I don't know, she was Kumeyaay or indigenous from Mexico, but, I remember her, and she blessed me one time, and I'd like to honor her here. And I said, sure, let's do it. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Do you have any pictures of her? And I said, well, no, but she kind of looked like this, like that. And so I painted it. And he said, that's her. That's freaking her, man. And since then, other people have come by, and they told us what her name was, because nobody remembered her name. But, that was Doña such and so that lived right down the street. They recognized her. And another funny story is there was an indigenous couple that lived across the street. And he was watching me one morning, and he thought I was talking to a big, tall Indian woman. And he goes, who's that mama over there that he's talking to? And he came over and realized I was painting it. So we became friends at the time. And in fact, he got involved in the center there, because they also sell arts and crafts and stuff. So it's very, very interesting. So he also commissioned me to do another mural. Can you go to the next one? And this one was far more significant and historical and important in that neighborhood. One more? One more? That one. Okay, so I don't know how many of you know about a case that happened in 1938 called the Lemon Grove Incident. So the Lemon Grove Incident was a case in which the Board of Education got together and decided that Mexican kids should not be in school with white kids. Okay, there had been a long history of farm workers' kids going to school there, and so this is just something that was imposed practically overnight. The next day, the principal went to the school without notifying any of the parents. They had decided that this converted barn would be the alternative school. And in the middle of the day, he called all the Mexican kids together and said, from now on, all of you kids will be taking classes in that building down the way. And so he sent them there. The kids, like many of our people, don't just roll over. They went home and told their parents. And the parents formed a comité called Comité de Vecinos. And that Comité de Vecinos put their heads together, and one of the family members was a friend of an attorney from the labor struggles in the mines in Arizona. So they contacted him, and lo and behold, he took this case and fought this case. They brought in witnesses. They brought in the whole town would show up to the courtroom and won this case, right? This is 20 years before Brown versus Board of Education. So this is the very first successful non-discrimination case in education in the country. So it's a very, very important case that everyone had forgotten, even those in Lemon Grove. So when we started painting this, we started getting visitors who were the children and grandchildren of the kids that experienced this, right? Because they had shared that story. And it was just a wonderful thing, to give life to that historical event that happened to their families, to their parents, to their grandparents. And it was really a beautiful thing that in many ways transformed that community.
A really good film done on
Mhm.
this case. Yeah, I think you can find it in most libraries. The
Mhm.
Lemon Grove incident.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Let me
To
go
illustrate that.
It's by Paul Espinosa who did that. So, okay, next one. I think I'll just do one more real quickly.
I'm gonna go back.
Yeah, come on. One more. Go back more. One more. That one. So these are some of the relatives of the original families of the Lemon Grove incident. When we had the unveiling, that whole block right there was full of people, most of them relatives, children, grandchildren, who came to commemorate that sacrifice of their parents. It's a beautiful experience. So that's it. Okay,
Thank you very much, Mario. I know I live real close to Lemon Grove, and this was, something that I said it's close to home. It's not something that it's somewhere else. It's just down the street, and so I think it really moved the community. I was there present during the dedication. Cindy,
Hello.
did you have something? A question?
A quick question, in the news recently, I think it was, is it Azusa? They're moving a school that was, where they had Mexican kids go to school in Azusa, and they're preserving that house. They're moving it down to, some block. I don't know if anybody heard that on the
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, there was a school.
I'll look
There
into
used to
that.
be a school.
This one was a horse stable, the one that they stuck us in. So, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna, they would ever preserve that. But,
Did they conduct classes there? In that-
yeah, they
In the-
want that,
Well, no, actually, they had one day of school and only one child showed up. The rest went home, they didn't come back. They were threatened with arrest. The parents were threatened with deportation, losing their jobs, but they stuck to it. And they never used it formally as a
And
school.
actually, it's illegal not to teach them.
Yeah, it is.
If they ever show up for school.
Yeah, if you see the movie, they show the truant officer going and threatening the parents. Yeah. So Cindy.
So I think I'm gonna start with the brown image mural. So when I began this project, you can go back to it, the previous photo. When I began this project, I was 9 months pregnant at the time, and was in like my last trimester. And to me, it was like a real big source of pride that I continued to work in the community that I love, doing the thing that I love the most. So here I am after the scaffolding was erected. And I believe this one was 7 stories high.
5.
5. Okay, 5
5
stories
stories.
high. And what was so important to me is that I was a part of this historic mural just because of the technical aspect of it. Victor had the genius idea of painting the car like a lowrider. So the background is all gold flake. But here we are prepping the surface. So Carmelo and Tina had their murals at the very bottom, and in order to not have all the other gold flake kind of like pass and like ruin theirs, we had to like cover them first. So that was, I think, 4 days before I gave birth. So I was like climbing up and down the scaffolding, and I think that's what helped to aid the process of labor.
And was that a straight ladder?
No, it was like scaffolding.
No,
Yeah.
professional scaffolding,
Yeah.
$10,000 scaffolding.
Most scaffolds don't have that kind
I
of.
know. I get the luxury because like
Deluxe.
Victor likes his deluxe scaffolding, so
Plus I'd have to have stairs so I could climb it
yeah.
with arm rails.
Oh,
The next one.
And that's the baby that was in
Yeah.
her tummy.
There you go. So this is the background that's painted in all gold flake. So when the sun hits that pillar, it just shines like like a sun.
And what do you have on, as a base?
It is, I think it's like
It's,
gold.
well, it's
A
originally automobile primer, and then we put 30 pounds of gold metal
Metal
flake. The heaviest metal flake you could put on a car.
Yeah.
And then the brown is candy apple root beer.
Is it a
Airbrush.
lacquer?
It's, no, it's a
No.
different, it's a automobile material that's
It's
pretty
very
enduring.
like watery.
There's a special thinners that have to be used in that.
Yeah.
And your acrylics will stick to it?
No, we don't use, we didn't
didn't
use
use
any,
acrylic.
the whole thing is automobile paint,
Yeah.
including 2 coats, heavy-duty coats of clear,
Clear coat.
just like a lowrider. And
whole
the
thing.
show here at DA is documented by the photography of our photographer, Pete Gonzalez, back there with the big camera right there in town. And you can see on the bottom floor some enlargements and some up here. They're all photographing the process, a 6 months, almost 7 months process of painting this particular mural.
Is it a airbrush combination?
Yeah,
All
that's
airbrushed.
all airbrushed. And we have a lot of the images that were a personal archive of Henry and Janine that were used as reference photos. So this is, I believe it was National Avenue. And this was like like after the takeover and all the cars are lined up. So those are all of the images that are depicted on that are taken from Chicano Park history. So that was like really important. And it's all painted in that monochromatic with just the brown and the gold, which was pretty challenging for a lot of artists, not only because it's super technical as far as using just airbrush. A lot of artists that did want to join were kind of intimidated by that because it's, we often talk about like, when you paint acrylic and you're using a brush, it's like one thing to go from pencil to brush, that's a leap, but it's an even bigger leap to go from a paintbrush to an airbrush gun. And a lot of people were turned off by that idea because it's very permanent. It's not something that you can just erase, so you have to be like on your game about that. And yeah, that was just a real big source of pride because I got to teach a bunch of other women how to airbrush and whether or not there was one woman that I did teach, Christina, who stuck with it and joined the team and was there airbrushing. So that was really cool.
It's all monochromatic?
Yes. Yes.
Just like the old school photographs. I had done the Mexican Revolution in sepia tone colors before, and I really loved the monochromatic part to it. But this is off of metal flake. Mario reminded me to say that the photographs stem from 50 years of the car club's, history, which is the same as the parks. So some of the participants in the club from 50 years ago, or 53 years ago now, it's since 1970, were during the takeover. They were present during the takeover of the park. So there is a combination of families, kids that a lot of these people have passed away already in the past 50 years, and so there's that historical value. And I'm kind of like Wayne and David. I'm into other areas like architecture. I'm a stickler to know what the community looked like in the history of the 50 years. So there's a lot of different buildings and things that don't even exist anymore are in the design. So was that it? Cindy?
I think there's one more photo. I can't remember. And my
That's
partner.
George.
My partner there who also helped to
Babysit.
yeah, to babysit. Not really babysit, but care for his own child. So I think that needs to be a different way
George,
that we
let's
look at.
clarify that, please.
But he also did help a lot.
Is that
and
scaffolding for?
That's the scaffolding for the brown image. 5 stories high, that's our container where we keep all our materials. And then we had a porta potty.
That was
5
five
stories.
stories.
No, already painted.
It's finished.
Oh, you don't have any more photos?
I
We
can
haven't,
include
we,
them,
the
yeah.
whole gallery has got those
There's
photos.
several here
Oh, okay.
on the walls.
Yeah.
All the photography you see from Pete is documenting that mural.
Oh,
And there's actually one that that the DA built, a gold pillar, just to accentuate our exhibit.
okay.
I know you haven't had a chance to see the show.
No, we came straight here.
It's late.
About 3-4 minutes.
And then,
So,
yeah, there's a
you
link.
know, I think our time is up, but, you know, I always like to take up some questions, you guys. I know, don't act like junior high school kids.
How about the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the airbrush that you guys use, is it easier to work with that than spray cans?
Well, we don't, you know, I work with graffiti artists. I have two places where they can go freely and use their can. Cans, even at the best quality, have 5 to 7 years durability. I'm a Chicano that wants to preserve. We just opened a museum Saturday, our first Chicano museum at Chicano Park. Why? Because we want to archive our history. We want to protect it because nobody else will do it. If we wait to the establishment to do it, forget it. We'll die and we'll disappear invisible. The paints that we use, when I paint with acrylics, I use golden airbrush, pre-mix airbrush paint. That has the best durability, you know, possible with acrylics. It's up to 20 to 50-year durability, especially if you put the polarizing clears over it.
Has a lot of pigment in it.
Yeah, it's the best stuff that they make. You know, it's better than Liquitex and other colors, even Nova Color. I've been using Nova Color for brushing on.
How long do you think that mirror will last?
Well,
If you guys
we put the clears and everything on it. You know, I want to say we've already been there for 50 years, so you know we know we can handle 50 years. So our technical ability has increased. I've written a book on restoration. So I think, you know, with some maintenance, I think we can at least see another 50 years and maybe longer if we do some periodical restorations.
So our grandson will enjoy the art?
We are definitely, I have a grandson, he's only 3.5. I hope he does. He's already been up on the scaffolding. It's scarier than hell, but you know, we are looking forward to our future. We don't want to go away. Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Yes, ma'am. Mister.
You know, it's so wonderful to see these arts, and it's so wonderful to these arts are still alive. It doesn't, hopefully, it goes years over years, because arts is stories. They have a lot of things behind, and a lot of people they don't know how much it is worth it. And for example, in the school, I worked at the school for 24 years, and when they used to have art classes, and now they don't teach in art classes.
No.
So, and that's pretty bad, because a lot of kids, they're born, like my daughter, my other kids, my wife, with that thing is already in their blood, and they don't even go to school. They know how to do mirrors, they know how to do all kind of stuff, and that's very important for everybody to know where we come from.
Yes, and I think, I know for myself personally, being an artist strengthens you as an individual, makes you a stronger person, harder to control, harder to sell you hamburgers and all this other junk stuff, because you know a little bit more about yourself. So,
Yes.
you know, why they don't have art anymore as a main subject, my theory is that they want us to be a weaker community, easier to control. And, you know, I see racism, I see all kinds of other issues. that we probably cannot do in this hour and a half. I want to thank all the audience out there in the public. I would hope that we could put maybe our Instagrams on there somewhere, or in how to contact people. I'm even able to put my phone number on there. I don't care who calls me. I can always delete you off. My finger, by the way, is specially designed now with my 74-year-old arthritis, special for the Iwata Eclipse airbrush.
You have a certain kind that,
See
don't
it?
call me.
It's arthritis. It's already curved for that airbrush.
I got you.
And it is better than the I know a lot of like graffiti artists are using aerosol. Unfortunately, they don't seem to care for the durability. They think that if it lasts a weekend, they're lucky and it'll get buffed out. And I've been teaching a lot of them to try to put varnishes over the spray cans to last a little bit longer.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Power, public art,
Yeah, just go.
reach out.
Yeah.